What's a job that you just associate with jerks? Shit, howdy, that's true. I worked in the music industry until a little bit before COVID, and some of the most baffling behavior I've ever seen comes from talent/managers. I once was running a show where it was more or less a metal music showcase for NAMM years ago. There were some pretty big names on the list like Yngwie Malmsteen, and a few other medium names in metal plus a bunch of smaller bands. Well, it was supposed to be a showcase. 17 bands, 15-minute sets, supposed to be over before 10 p.m., started at 5 p.m. No biggie, I've had gigs like that before, but not with all this management there. Because it was a NAMM show, there are a ton of sponsors and other bands, like on different stages as well. Long story short, I get a few managers that try to fight for more time because their bands need it more. My spidey sense is tingling because a couple of the bands don't even talk to me, they just send their manager to check in. Weird. Cut to the first band that plays over the set, just like 10 minutes over. Whatever. Well, everyone noticed that and decided nothing mattered. The first few bands go 5 or 10 over, which was manageable but not ideal. As soon as we get to the first big act, they just keep playing. 5, 10, 20 minutes over the set time. I go up to their manager and say, if they don't get off now, I'm turning off the stage and they'll look stupid. No lights, backing tracks, keys or stage monitors. At that point it's really hard to keep playing. Manager goes up in between songs and comes back to my booth and says they only have 2 more songs and shrugs. I called security back to my booth, then shut down the stage and let them slowly realize they can't hear themselves and that they're all sliding out of sync. I get ran up on by the band and their manager after the show, telling me how unprofessional I am and that they play overtime all the time and nobody cares, which is BS. I just point at my 17 band list and told them to leave. Nobody else played over their time and that band got banned from playing NAMM events in the future, so really super not worth it for them. I have so many more stories, that's just the first that came to mind. I booked shows at my college. We got some pretty big bands that came through, thanks to a healthy budget from student activity fees. It was pretty awesome dealing with some pretty big acts at 20 and good experience. Once there was a smallish pop-punk band that had a drum riser listed on their rider. We had them booked in a small multi-purpose room and we had the dimensions of the stage in contract, so they should have been well aware it was a small stage and there wasn't physical room for a drum riser. The band gets there and loads in when the manager notices there wasn't a drum riser and starts freaking out, yelling at me and the other student committee members. We start calling everywhere we can think of to find a drum riser, never mind it was a 200 cap room in the basement of a college. Fast forward 15 minutes, and the drummer walks in and his manager tells him about the situation. Dude was like, oh, that's cool. No big deal. The manager never talked to me after that. This is something that confused me so much as a church kid. It's not like they don't mention this verse and no one knows it. It's heavily referenced, but then they would get so excited if someone made an obnoxiously public display of faith, like Tim Tebow was the height of religious activism for praying for a game when probably 70% of the other players are some form of Christian, too, and just doing a silent prayer in their heads for every play. It really has to come down to the misinformation campaign Christian political hucksters have run to make evangelical and fundamentalist Christians think they're a small persecuted group when the population is still majority religious and mostly Christian. They interpret secular as anti-religious instead of just deciding that we aren't gonna play which faith is best when in mixed company of lots of beliefs. So, they think forcing a captive audience through a loud display of praying is activism for Jesus, when the data-driven reality is that you're showing off in front of mostly other forms of Christians and then a minority of other beliefs and non-belief that just get alienated by the experience. Oh, you're getting me started here. A family doc, an internist, a surgeon, and a pathologist go duck hunting. They come across the first duck flying out of a bush. The family doc raises his shotgun and says, "Looks like a duck, flies like a duck, must be a duck," and takes the shot. Bags himself a duck. Next duck flies out and the internist raises his shotgun, looks like a duck, flies like a duck, rule out quail, rule out pheasant, goose vs duck most likely. Takes the shot and gets himself a duck. Next a whole flock of ducks fly out and the surgeon raises his shotgun and empties the whole fucking thing, blood and feathers everywhere. When all the carcasses have hit the ground he turns to the pathologist and slaps him on the back and says, "Hey, go tell me that one of those is a duck." When I was in school, theater major, I had the opportunity to meet Bronson Pinchot when he briefly came to do a reading project. He was polite, but a bit standoffish, which sort of sucked at the time, as I was hoping to ask him some questions, or for any advice he might have for a young actor. I mentioned this to one of the IATSE guys, Stagehands Union, who had worked with him before, and he told me some stories about the kind of thing he has to put up with on a regular basis. The main one that I remember was that Pinchot was eating breakfast, got recognized, and then approached by this guy who basically demands that he do baki for him. Bronson apparently tried to politely decline, citing that he's just trying to eat, it's been years, maybe another time, etc., but dude wouldn't let up. To the point of following BP in his car, and eventually trying to run him off the road before speeding off. Fame. Pro, everyone knows who you are. Con, everyone knows who you are. I had almost forgotten about these gross upskirt shots that the paparazzi were always hoping for. I remember watching TMZ and seeing paparazzi literally laying on the ground with their cameras pointed upwards hoping to catch that split second when they stepped in or out of a vehicle to snap a crotch shot. I feel like nowadays, that could possibly result in criminal charges. Honestly, anyone who's ever worn a skirt or dress at / above their knees knows it would be damn near impossible to enter / exit a vehicle, especially a low-sitting vehicle, without separating their legs for a second to step in / out. The tabloids always presented these photos as if these women were just intentionally flashing their goods to the world, which is untrue and unfair. I believe the UK passed legislation making upskirting a crime, mainly because they were so horrified at how often this was happening in the US. Radcliffe said it in an interview and it appears to be true. Radcliffe's strategy was to make the paparazzi photos worthless on the tabloid market. Quoting a later publication's summary. But the most effortless way to stymie the paparazzi, Daniel Radcliffe found during his 2007 performance in Equus, was to make sure photos of him were as boring as possible. The paparazzi waiting for him outside the theater after the play could never get a usable shot, because he was always in the same outfit. I would wear the same jacket and zip it up so they couldn't see what I was wearing underneath, and the same hat, he told Jay Leno in an interview on The Tonight Show. As a result, every photo looked like it had been taken on the same day, and the photographers couldn't sell them. They became unpublishable, which was hilarious because there's nothing better than seeing the paparazzi get really frustrated, he told Leno. He kept up the habit for the entire run of the play. My mom's widower was an oil rig manager. Dumbass had a 10th grade education and lucked out making around $300,000 a year. After the Horizon oil rig disaster, they had new regulations and he refused to go over hypothetical accident scenarios on a conference call because my crew would never make a mistake and hung up on his company's compliance guy. So he was already in hot water. Then one of the higher-ups from corporate was visiting his rig. They were having a meal and the corporate guy was trying to get to know him and make small talk and was talking about how he enjoyed hunting and riding ATVs and whatnot. Asked the rig manager what his hobbies were and this dumb fuck straight-faced says I like to fight, fuck, and drink. Needless to say, he was asked never to come back after that month-long shift was over. Dumbass lost a $300K/year career trying to maintain some kind of badass biker persona. Guy was a fucking joke. In big law firms, the clients are often banks and big companies who get into situations where one day's delay costs $100,000, often because so many big projects are done with borrowed money, and suddenly the law firm gets this problem dumped in their lap. That's one of the reasons, but certainly not the only reason, that young lawyers end up getting so little sleep. That's how Yale law grads end up sleeping by the fax machine. In small law firms, the lawyers, who are mostly middle-class strivers, have clients who are having the worst experience of their little lives, maybe divorce, maybe bankruptcy, all kinds of stuff. And the clients come into your office and cry. So half your interactions with other people are super high stress. When I worked in a law office, I had no energy for anything after work and failed to pay my utility bills or properly do my taxes. One of my favorite surgeons in the whole wide world, his resident kinda went rogue one night in my ICU, ordering nurses to do things that were against policy, but not widely known that it was against policy, as it was a kinda weird situation we didn't often deal with in my ICU, and then when I told the nurse not to do it, he threatened to get me fired, and when I printed out the policy, he ripped it up and threw the paper in my face. One short email to his attending, and his attending didn't email me back. He walked down to my unit before his shift even started, pulled me off to the side to get clarification on what happened, then his face got all red. He was known for having a bit of a temper, and I was nervous even though he'd never yelled at me, and then, he apologized to me, and ensured me his resident would be by shortly to also apologize to me. And please let him know if he did not give a satisfactory apology. He did not give me a nice apology. It was a very short and cold exchange, but I figured the ass-chewing he'd already received was good enough and just sent his attending an email thanking him for following up. I haven't worked with him in close to 10 years, but I still miss it. Such a great human. I'm 99% sure that's illegal. Debt collectors do illegal shit sometimes, but they can also get strung through the ringer if you report it. We'll probably get that shit knocked off. Here we go, check out subsection B of this law. That says they're not allowed to contact anyone but the debtor, except for the purposes of locating the debtor, and then only one time. If you're in the US, that should apply to you. So since they're not trying to call to collect contact information from the debtor, they're not allowed to call you. Even if they were trying to collect information about the debtor, they could only call you once. I'll do some Googling for you and figure out who you contact. In all likelihood, just telling them you've explained to them that you're not the debtor and calling again is breaking the law will get them to knock it off. Usually these debt collectors rely on people not knowing their rights, so just showing them that you do know your rights will probably be enough to get them off your back. They obviously think you're lying, but the law don't care. E2, here's where you can report. My guess is the state attorney general is your best bet, but you can report them to the FTC as well. But like I said, in all likelihood just telling them that they're breaking the law and you're going to report them will probably be enough. Good luck. I actually got yelled at for making a recruiter look bad to her client once. I would have felt badly, except the reason she looked bad was that she gave me the wrong company name to research, sorta close name, but it was an entirely different company, doing very different things, and b, she gave wildly incorrect directions to get to the interview site, which was in a newly built complex that didn't even appear on any maps yet. I actually left in time to get there 30 minutes early, except the directions were so far off they took me 2 towns over, and I got there 45 minutes late. As if that wasn't a bad enough way to start off a job interview, the very first question was, "Why do you want to work for us?" To which I thought I gave an excellent response based on many hours of research, of a totally unrelated company in a different industry. After some confusing follow-up discussion, it was finally revealed that I wasn't at the place I was told I'd be interviewing at, and everything else went downhill pretty quickly, even though the job itself was in my scope of experience. It was truly embarrassing. The recruiter actually called me about 30 minutes into my drive home, saying the client was very unhappy with the preparedness and punctuality of her candidate, and asking me what happened. I told her, politely but in clear detail, and it either didn't click or she just didn't want to accept that it was her failure, not mine. She then started lecturing me, in a very nasty, condescending voice, about how I needed to act like a professional and do my homework beforehand and always allow at least 10 minutes extra time to get to an interview. I again told her how she had told me the wrong company name and website, and gave me very wrong directions, and reminded her that I had no way to verify either of those as being incorrect beforehand. She said something like "yeah, right," and I said goodbye. Oh, my God. In June/July, I was notified that my rent was going to go up by 25%. I was to start paying more for base rent and pet rent after paying one-time pet lease fees and document fees. I had a week to decide whether or not to move out. With the current housing market, I had little choice but to nut up and just go through with the lease for another year. In this span of time, my fridge started freezing everything due to an irreversible design flaw. The maintenance man said I needed a new fridge. He called the apartment manager as soon as he diagnosed the problem while still standing in my kitchen. I was without a functioning fridge for at least 3 weeks. When I went out to sign the lease, I tried to haggle off the bullshit document fee because I'd been without an appliance that was supposed to be included in my rent. The apartment manager said, and I quote, "That document fee is how people like me make money. So you're telling me that you're literally making shit up so you can take my money and put it directly in your pocket? Go fuck yourself. I can't wait to be out of this shithole next year." When I got my degree, all I knew is I wanted to have a salary putting design and writing skills to use. The idea of coming up with fun advertisements with fun photo shoots and fun fonts is innocent enough. I just wish I understood more about our culture and the world and the economy before I dived in so enthusiastically. I thought of myself as an artist, not a pusher. Even as I learned in my history of advertising class about instances where the psychology of people was experimented with through media to manipulate their behavior, I thought of this more as interesting than alarming. Everything is pushed. No one in this economy has the mentality of simply helping people find the right products for their needs. Instead, there is growth and market share to worry about. Our civilization is being run into the ground by this mentality, and I sincerely wish nothing but the worst for the people who are still enthusiastically beating this drum in 2021. God damn them. I came from a pretty small town, surrounded by other small towns. The nearest city was an hour away to get to the outskirts. I found in small towns there are two types of cops. The super chill ones who don't take shit too seriously because it's a small town and nothing is gonna happen. These guys care about people but also recognize that everyone is human. These are the ones who roll up to the high school party and go, "All right, time to call it a night." Any sober drivers here? They don't bust the kids for doing what kids do, they just want them to get home safe. The super douchey ones. These are the hyper-aggressive ones that question you because you happen to look at them in a suspicious way. Usually these guys were middle of their class at the state academy and not worthy to be hired by the big city PDS that pay better, so they take the small town gigs. They criminals in every shadow and often try to arrest teenagers for horrendous crimes like loitering, going 3 miles per hour over the speed limit, or walking through town. These guys also tend to creepily hit on high school girls. Depends on your individual situation and majorly on if the collector is third-party or first-party collections. For instance, first-party can and will garnish wages. Third-party generally cannot, and via the FDPA, Fair Debt Collections Practices Act, cannot legally make that threat at all unless they actually intend to follow through. Normally it's just easier to allow a debt to go the full 180 days of deliquesce and charge it off. Bad for your credit. Write off for them. There are hardship clauses that protect debtors as well. Like I was collecting during Hurricane Katrina. Is it at all feasible to collect on someone whose complete life and security was destroyed and are fighting just to get clean water? Not at all. So it was best for my clients, debtors, to be afforded that relief so by the time and prevent any charges like past due or over limit. Same year I was working for third-party collections on Capital One accounts. They made $3.2 trillion on those fees alone. Over limit and past due. Kinda pissed me off. So know that there are collectors like myself that actually want to help people. Collection companies train their collectors in depth about the FPA and actively tell them to ignore it, knowing it is federally illegal to do so. Because most debtors have never been educated on the FPA.